I'd asked my fiance, my child's father, it was me who asked him to put them in the woods because I couldn't care for him. Our house. I approached him and told him that I had rescued the kittens and that I had reported him to Animal Services. Boyce then said, "F this guy, I'm gonna murder this guy." Mr. Vasser put my children in danger is what I'm here for. I immediately felt threatened and concerned about my girlfriend's safety, and I drew my firearm. My children were present. Adrian was at that moment unarmed, and Mr. Vasser did pull out his firearm. Because Boyce continued to threaten me, I raised my pistol to a ready position and told him once more to leave the property.
All right, and next we've got case number 26-284, Valerie King and Adrian Boyce versus Zachary Vasser. So,
yes, Your Honor.
All right, so I already went over kind of the general provisions here, so I won't go over that again. I'll simply start by swearing in the parties and taking testimony. Before I do that, I'll begin by, similar with that other case, going over my understanding of the record so far. And that is that, well, I think Ms. King hopefully will be able to fill in some gaps here. I have read everything. My understanding is that there is the parties here don't live in the same building, but live in buildings near each other. And there was an incident on June 1st that has resulted in petitioner Adrian Boyce being prosecuted in Thurston County Superior Court for harassment with Mr. Vasser as the alleged victim. So I want to be very careful, and I want to make sure everyone's aware. I know we don't have Mr. Boyce with us, but this is a hearing that's put folks under oath. And so what is said here can be used in the criminal prosecution. And that includes anything that becomes inconsistent. And it includes, I know Mr. Boyce again isn't here, so there's no Fifth Amendment self-incrimination issues. But I want to make sure everyone's aware that it gets really tricky when the subject of a civil anti-harassment order is also the subject of an ongoing criminal prosecution, particularly where we don't have defense counsel kind of as part of it, because this could have significant impact on that criminal case. So that is currently pending, and my understanding is Mr. Boyce is also in custody on that right now. There was an incident there. Ms. King is alleging that part of that incident involved Mr. Vasser displaying and aiming a firearm in the presence of children, and then that's the basis of asking for a protection order. There's been some other documents filed by Ms. King that I'd ask her to maybe flesh out a bit. There's a lot of conclusory statements about child safety and things of that nature, but it's a little unclear from what's been filed. What are the allegations against Mr. Zachary Vasser? And I also want to be clear here that with Mr. Boyce having not been part of the petition and is not here to give testimony, I don't think I have grounds here to protect him in any kind of protection order. That would need some sort of testimony from him one way or another. And without that, I don't know if there's much I can do there as well. So I guess there's a couple of moving pieces here that make this hearing a little challenging. But with that, we've got the parties present. So Ms. King, I'll start with you and put you under oath. Again, I think it would be helpful to flesh out a bit what you're alleging occurred, and specifically why you're asking for an order against Mr. Vasser. So with that, ma'am, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So this started on May 20th over kittens that I couldn't care for anymore. I had called the animal control to come and get them. They didn't answer. I left a message. They didn't call me back. I'd asked my fiance, my child's father, to put. It was me who asked him to put them in the woods because I couldn't care for him. Our house was starting to smell like feces. I have 3 kids, yada, yada, yada. And so as he was putting him in the woods, Mr. Vasser came out and told him he's going to get him for animal cruelty, a felony for animal cruelty. Hold on real quick, excuse me. And he was harassing him about the kittens. Every time Adrian would go outside, Adrian would come inside frustrated. Here's her socks. Every time Adrian would come inside frustrated that Mr. Vasser was harassing him and commenting on the kittens. Well, June 1st rolled around and we were looking for our daughter, Riley. Riley was missing. I have walkie-talkies for the kids. She wasn't answering the walkie-talkie. She wasn't around my 14-year-old, so we started yelling for her. My toddler wanted to go outside with him to look for Riley. When he found Riley, Riley was in the vicinity of Mr. Vasser by the picnic tables and the trash can. And I don't know the extent of the conversation that it right then and there. I know what my 9-year-old told me was my toddler went to go pet his dog. His dog was growling at my toddler. And Adrian said, to the extent, get your dog before someone gets hurt. And our 9-year-old had already been bit by a dog 2 years ago, a pit bull. She had to have 15 stitches. So we're very protective of dogs and our children. At that moment, Zachary Vasser is on. I have the report, the police report. He pulled out his firearm and held it at Adrian's leg. At first he held it at the ground, the report says, and then he held it up to his leg. My toddler is knee height. I'm not going to say what either of them said because I was not there. But my 9-year-old said, Adrian said, get your dog before somebody gets hurt. Now that wasn't extended at him. That was a general statement. After that, from June 1st to, I'm going to read the police report. It says subject at apartments threatened to murder RP and told RP that he owned a firearm. RP pulled his own firearm and the subject ran away. RP is waiting by the.
So you're going to have to distinguish who's
Mr. Vasser
the reporting party. Yep. All right.
Mr. Vasser called on himself and let them know what was going on June 1st. The other involved ran back to his own apartment. RP declined to provide his own apartment number. RP believes subject is trespass from location and a convicted felon. That's what I wanted to discuss too. He knew pertinent and very sensitive information about our household. I did not know this man's name until June 5th when my fiance got arrested. Possibly associates with buildings. Clarify, RP has holstered firearm on his 3 o'clock. RP advised that he will have hands visible for law enforcement when they arrive so they can disarm him if necessary. Then it goes on to describe what he was wearing. Front office saw the male subject. Subject lives at F building. They did not give his apartment number for Mr. Vasser. It goes to describe his description. It says reasonable suspicion for felony harassment. There is a Elizabeth that is in here as a report, also reporting that she supposedly had heard him say this. I don't know. I do know that Mr. Vasser put my children in danger is what I'm here for. My children were 9 and 2, and Mr. Adrian Boyce was unarmed. We do not own firearms. Yes, we are both convicted felons, and we are not allowed to own firearms. I let the police come in here and look for him on June 1st when this had happened. I did not know that a firearm was pulled out at Adrian at all because Adrian had left to go look for his phone that day, but the police had came and informed me that Mr. Vasser had called himself and let them know that he had pulled a firearm out with children present. June the 1st through the 5th had there was several times that they both had went out to walk their dogs, our dog, and he went out to walk his dogs, and there was some altercation of communication between them as well. I do believe that this is between two men that are having issues handling conflict. I do not believe that there is a reason for. I mean, this is over kittens. This is pretty immature of both sides, but it has came to the extent that my children, during the time that Mr. Vasser had returned home, on it says in the report on June 5th, he was home from 8:10 to 10:53. That he supplied his screenshots of his location. My daughter was also missing again on June 5th. And between the time of 8 and 9 o'clock, we were looking for her. And she wasn't answering the walkie-talkie again. At 8:30, something had occurred I did not know of until, I will get to that until Monday morning. June 5th, she returned home about 9 o'clock and stated that Mr. Vasser was around the area and held her hand over her mouth, and held him by her and said, held her by him and said, "Don't tell anything." Unfortunately, that was, I apologize. That was a child that was in trauma at that time. She did not give true facts. In fact, on Monday morning, we found out that she was exploited by 3 other little boys at 8:30 on video camera. And the school district called me, the police and the principal had called me to inform me of this. Adrian was on the phone with police department as he was getting arrested because we were reporting her being missing. And he was reporting the what Riley had said Mr. Vasser had did to her. I don't know the extent of whether that is true or not. His proximity and close around my daughter, both incidences, has made me very concerned. And at this time, our children have been traumatized by Mr. Vasser and his allegations of my child's father threatening to murder him. When he had supposedly allegedly threatened to murder him, he was unarmed and 2 children were next to him. Mr. Vasser he had all protection against him. And my children, at that time that he was arrested for felony harassment, there was no threat. They had found supposedly probable cause on June 1st. 5 days later had went by and there was no altercation. He had not harmed him. There was some altercation verbally between the two while they were walking their dogs. My daughter was in a state of trauma when her protector got arrested. And that would have came out had we had time to talk to her and he had not got arrested. It would have came out that Mr. Vasser had in fact not held her against her will. What would have came out was what had happened with the little boys in the woods close to his apartment, actually. So my children are very much, Riley is very much traumatized, and just the harassment. He knew pertinent information about Adrian's leasing status. He knew our name. He knew we were felons. The fact that, to my belief, I'm not 100% sure, he works for the Thurston County Fleet. And I believe that this is selective policing. He called the police on himself and told them that he did this in front of children. My children were the victims of a firearm crime, And I believe that our safety, I mean, he's still not home. I believe our safety is, in fact, in jeopardy. My 14-year-old says she sees him up at the the field every time she goes to pick up her sisters from daycare about 6 o'clock in the evening since Adrian has been gone. And I don't know this man, and this started over some kittens, 2 men that can't handle conflict. They both should have minded their own business. But my children are, in fact, I feel my children are in safety. Our safety is in jeopardy, and I would like a continuation of this if possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. King. I'm going to hear now from Mr. Vasser. All right, sir. Can you please raise your right hand Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide today is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So, at noon on May 20th, 2026, I was walking my dogs in a wooded area adjacent to my apartment. As I was walking, I saw a cardboard box with a plastic tote lid on top of the box just off the pathway. As I approached the box, I noticed a kitten with its face pressing up against a tiny hole inside of the box. I immediately turned around and took my dogs back to my apartment. I then returned to the box of kittens and lifted the lid to find 5 very small kittens with no food, water, and they were covered in their own waste. The kittens had no way to escape the box. I then took the box to the office of my apartment and gave them food and water. With the help of my apartment manager, we were able to find and adopt them through social media. We were able to find them new homes through social media. After about 2 to 3 hours, all of the kittens had new homes and could be properly cared for. My apartment manager checked the security cameras at the complex entrance. The footage shows Mr. Boyce and his daughter carrying a box of kittens towards the wood there. My apartment manager and myself filed a complaint with Joint Animal Services and provided them with the footage. The report was filed by my apartment manager, as at the time I did not know the identity of Boyce. I was listed as a witness in the report. At this point, everything that could be done had been done, and that was the end of it. On June 2nd, I received a call from Animal Services, an Animal Services officer, and was told that there would be no charges filed against Mr. Boyce because it was considered a misdemeanor, and the prosecutor would likely not pursue charges, even though she said that the video evidence was some of the best she had ever seen in an animal abandonment case. I was disturbed that this person was not going to be held responsible for dumping the kittens, but thanked her for her time and did the call. Note that I had never met, seen, interacted with, or had knowledge of this person prior to discovering the kittens and seeing them on footage. The phone call with the officer was the last time I had any interaction with anyone regarding this. On May 23rd, 2026, I noticed Boyce at the entrance to the wooded trail where I found the kittens. He appeared to be looking to see if the box of kittens was still there. I approached him and told him that I had rescued the kittens, that he was on camera carrying the box toward the wooded area, and that I had reported him to Animal Services, and that he needed to leave the property. Boyce does not reside on this property and has no reason for leaving. We engaged in a brief exchange of words and then went our separate ways. This was the very first interaction I had with Boyce. At the time, I didn't even know his name. On June 1st, 2026, at around 8:30 p.m., my girlfriend, Allie Elliott, and I took our dogs for a walk. After the walk and picking up after them, we made our way to the dumpster located by our front office to dispose of it. As we rounded the corner of the building, Boyce and 2 small children were standing on the opposite side of the building next to the side of the dumpster. After I made eye contact with Boyce, he turned to the older of the 2 children and said, "F that dog," referring to the small chihuahua whose leash I was holding. They then walked around the corner of the building towards the front of the dumpster. After a second, I cautiously continued towards the dumpster so I could throw away the dog waste. Boyce then said, "F this guy, I'm gonna murder this guy." As he was saying this, he was rapidly moving one hand around his waistband, while the other hand was still holding the smaller child's hand. I immediately felt threatened and concerned about my girlfriend's safety, and I drew my firearm, keeping it lowered by my leg and pointed at the ground. I told him he was not even supposed to be on the property and verbally reiterated that he had just threatened to kill me. I again told him he should leave the property. Boyce responded by saying, "F you, I'll murder you, fool. You just made a big mistake." He then said, "Oh, I got something for you at the house." Because Boyce continued to threaten me, I raised my pistol to a ready position and told him once more to leave the property. Boyce then turned to the older of the 2 children and said, "This is the fool who saw us on camera," referring to the incident of him and the child in the process of dumping a box of kittens in the nearby wooded area on May 20th. The child responded by flipping me off and saying, "F you." Boyce and the child then turned and started to walk away. Because the immediate threat seemed to have passed, I reholstered my firearm and walked over to see which direction they were heading so I could relay that information to dispatch as I was in the process of calling them. Dispatch advised me that it would be safer to wait for officers inside of our apartment or wait from the scene if Boyce decided to return, so we went to our apartment. After our officers arrived and conducted their investigation, they concluded that they had probable cause to arrest Boyce for felony harassment with threats. The officers were unable to locate Boyce to make the arrest at the time. I submitted this statement and evidence to the court, and further details are within that Exhibit C of the police department case. On the evening of June 5th, I received a phone call from OPT Officer Perez Gutierrez. He asked me where I had been that afternoon in Cody. I was slightly taken aback by the question, but I told him where I had been during the time frame he mentioned, which was the family birthday party held at 30 Days Pizza Party. He thanked me for the information and ended the phone call. At that time, I had no idea why he had asked me about this information. I later learned that Boyce had accused me of holding his daughter against her will and not allowing her to communicate with her parents via walkie-talkie. All details of this fabricated incident can be found in Exhibit D of my evidence. I will add that I provided my whereabouts to the officer via Live 360, which is an app that tracks your location via your phone. Additionally, I was with 5 members of my family and my girlfriend in a public restaurant. In the OPD report.
Hang on, Mr. Vasser.
Yeah.
If you could hang on for one moment. Did we lose Miss King? I just saw a message that she's okay. My computer, okay. She says my computer's glitching. I can sign on and off when he is done with his testimony. Yeah.
It's not letting me, it's glitching. I can hear part of it, but it's on, I have CC, closed captions going, but I don't know if it's showing me or not, because on my side, it's showing that it's blank. So I just wanted to update you of my status. I can read what he's saying, but I cannot hear him.
So you cannot hear Mr. Vasser? Is that right, Miss King?
Or I'm reading your closed caption. I can't hear either of you.
All right. If that's the case, I don't know if closed captioning is accurate enough to rely on here. And it's also, Mr. Vasser, you glitched a bit on our end too there for a moment.
Okay, I could go back and.
Well, my concern is I want to make sure everyone can hear everything, and we're getting connection issues on both sides here. I'm partially inclined to reschedule this to next Monday and have folks come in person so that we don't run into this technical issue. Yeah. Okay. So Ms. King, just to verify, you're saying you cannot hear either the court or Mr. Vasser at all and are instead relying on closed captioning. Is that right?
It's going in and out. I can now, it's going in and out. I can hear most of what you're saying, but it is glitching. That's why I asked if I may log off real quick and then log back on to reconnect.
All right, let's try that. And if that doesn't work, I think we're going to reschedule to next Monday and have folks come in person.
Yes, sir.
All right.
One moment, please.
All right, we'll hold off and let Ms. King try to log back on, and then hang on, Mr. Vasser. Let's we'll just hold off till she's back, and then see if we can finish this today.
I'd just like to add that we have not had any connectivity issues whatsoever.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. All right, so Ms. King, we've got you again. Yeah, if you could, I know you had your camera off before. Maybe if you keep it off, that might help with bandwidth.
Oh, okay.
Are you able to hear me, or are you seeing this through closed caption?
Nope, I can hear you. I can hear clear now. I had to plug it in and log back in online. So the connection is good and it's charging. Thank you. I apologize.
Nope, that's all right. We want to make sure everyone can hear everything. And Mr. Vasser, on our end, it was just one time glitch. So hopefully we're okay moving forward. You can continue with your testimony, sir.
Okay, so I believe I stopped, I will add that I provided my whereabouts to the officer via Life 360 app, which is an app that tracks your location via your phone. Additionally, I was with 5 members of my family and my girlfriend in a public restaurant. In the OPD report, Exhibit D, the officer describes how when questioning Rayleigh about the incident, Boyce was clearly coaching her responses. After hearing Rayleigh's story, the officer arrested Boyce for the incident of harassing and threatening to kill me. When the officer started to put restraints on Boyce, Rayleigh came at the arresting officer with a steak knife. The allegations that I was somehow involved with the child being unaccounted for or missing were deemed unfounded. I was relieved that that he had been arrested, and I was glad that the situation was over and I could get back to my normal life without the stress of not knowing if Boyce was hanging around my apartment complex and I might encounter him again. King later called dispatch to inform them that she had spoken with her daughter and she was not able to confirm if Rayleigh was telling the truth or not. However, King said she believed the report Rayleigh made was not accurate. Due to the inconsistencies throughout the report made by Rayleigh, Adrian, and King, this case was unfounded, and that was OPD case 2026-0312. On June 12th, 2026, my girlfriend and I woke up to the sound of someone banging on our apartment door. I answered the door to 2 police officers who introduced themselves as OPD and asked if I would come out and speak with them. I asked them what it was regarding, and the officer said that I was not in trouble, but that he was here to serve me with papers. I was confused and asked what the papers were about. He told me that it was an anti-harassment order from a Valerie King. I was even more confused because I had no idea who this person was. I asked the officer who the person was. The officer asked me if I knew an Adrian Boyce. I said that I did, and I told the officer that I currently have a pending protection order against him for felony harassment and threatening to kill me. The officer then told me that King was Boyce's girlfriend and the guardian of the children that Adrian was with on June 1st. I asked a few more questions, took the papers, and went back into my apartment. I read through the papers where King says the incident with Boyce caused fear for her children and household. Those are the same children that one of them was flipping me off and telling me to F off during the incident. King also states that before the firearm incident, Vasser repeatedly confronted or antagonized Adrian about the kittens after animal control had been contacted. I had never repeatedly confronted or antagonized Adrian Boyce. Before the incident where he threatened to kill me, I had only ever spoken to him once, and that was the time when I told him he had been reported for dumping the kittens and that he needed to leave the property. I do not know, nor have I ever spoken to Valerie King or her children. I wasn't even able to provide sufficient information to the police about Boyce's residence because I have no idea which apartment number he and King lived. I don't even know what King looks like before today's hearing. The only threats in all these situations were made to me. The harassment is being done to me. The other false accusations by Boyce and his daughter were serious and completely fabricated. Other alleged incidents mentioned in the protection order are also untrue, and some even contradictory to the apartment security footage that I have provided, such as the allegation that my girlfriend's dog growled at King's top. The footage clearly shows the dog on its leash at least 6 feet away from the child, and it wasn't even barking. I would also like to emphasize that all of the claims in the protection order are false and at odds with the facts presented in 2 different Olympia Police Department reports. All interactions I've had with Boyce have been on the property of the apartment complex where I reside. The only time I've seen Boyce's children is when they were with Boyce at my apartment complex. I've never had interactions with the children except when Rayleigh told me to F off while flipping me off, which I did not respond. Adrian Boyce.
Mr. Vasser, if I think at this point I think I understand what both sides here are getting at. And just so everyone's clear, I'm really focusing my attention on a single act of violence prong. I understand there's been allegations. I guess some now have been taken back, but there's still some questions out there. As far as the kind of the incidents with the kittens, and then the incidences on some of these allegations, I'm not really finding either of those to be substantiated enough or relevant to what's before us, which is a request for an anti-harassment protection order and an order to surrender weapons. For that, I'm really focused on the facts that are underlying the criminal prosecution. So I understand this can be this is a bit tricky, but we don't have the Mr. Boyce present, again, with implicating the Fifth Amendment. But I do find, to the extent that there's some sort of allegation forming the basis of what could be an order, that's it. So Mr. Vasser, if we could back up a bit, and then I'm going to turn back to Ms. King as well to hear from her on this. But out of everyone here, you were the only one present. So can you go back and describe for me again the incident where the firearm was pulled? Because it sounds like you sort of articulated what happened there. And I heard it all. I think it's important to go back over that maybe one more time.
Okay.
So yeah, if you could go back over that again for me, sir, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. So on June 1st, 2026, at around 8:30 p.m., my girlfriend, Allie Elliott, and I took our dogs for a walk. After the walk and picking up after them, we made our way to the dumpster located by the front office of our apartment to dispose of it. As we rounded the corner of the building, Boyce and two small children were standing on the opposite side of the building next to the side of the dumpster. After I made eye contact with Boyce, he turned to the older of the two children and said, "F that dog," referring to our small chihuahua whose leash I was holding. They then walked around the corner of the building towards the front of the dumpster. After a second, I cautiously continued towards the dumpster so I could throw the dogs. Boyce then said, "F this guy, I'm going to murder this guy." As he was saying this, he was rapidly moving one hand around his waistband, while the other hand was still holding the smaller child's hand. I immediately felt threatened and concerned about my safety and my girlfriend's. I drew my firearm, keeping it lower than my leg, and pointed at the ground. I told him that he was not even supposed to be on the property and verbally reiterated that he had just threatened to kill him. I again told him that he should leave the property. Boyce responded by saying, "F you, I'll murder you, fool. You just made a big mistake." He then said, "Oh, I got something for you at the house." Because Boyce continued to threaten me, I raised my pistol to a ready position and told him once more to leave the property. Boyce then turned to the older child and said, "This is the fool who saw us on camera," referring to the kitten incident. The child responded by flipping me off and saying, "F you." Boyce and the child then turned and started to walk away. Because the immediate threat seemed to have passed, I reholstered my firearm and walked over to see which direction Boyce was heading so I could relay that information to dispatch, as I was already in the process of calling 911. Dispatch advised that it would be safer to wait for the officers inside of our apartment, away from the scene, in case Boyce decided to return. So we went to our apartment to wait. After officers arrived and conducted their investigation, they concluded that they had probable cause to arrest Boyce for felony harassment with threats. The officers were unable to locate Boyce to make the arrest at the time. And that was the incident.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vasser. Going back to you, Ms. King. I know that I believe you had the police report, which I don't have in the file. I believe you were referring to that earlier, though. Again, the rules of evidence don't apply at these hearings. I'm curious, Ms. King, kind of on your end of it, what would you like to say about the alleged incident? I know you weren't there, so you're kind of basing this off of what you heard from Mr. Boyce and from the children. But go ahead. I'll let you describe what you your understanding of that incident.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. As I mentioned, our child was missing, and I do want to note that case number 2026-03170 is unavailable right now because it is still under investigation regarding children. And that was founded where she was missing because she was on video camera on another child's phone. So that is not available to anybody right now. That was on June 5th at 8:30 p.m. On June 1st at approximately 9 o'clock p.m. Riley was at 8 p.m. We were looking for her again. She was missing. She wouldn't answer the walkie-talkie. Excuse me, this was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was not dark yet. And Adrian had went out with our toddler. She wanted to go out there with him because he was leaving. When they went outside, he found Riley around the, on Fern Ridge property by the picnic tables, which is by the dumpster. And Riley had asked to pet the dog, and Adrian had told her no. And the dog was growling at Javaya, our toddler. And he said, "Get your dog before somebody gets hurt." It's my understanding from my 9-year-old. I am also going off the police reports. There is no exact statements on these police reports exactly what Mr. Vasser had said. He just said it was threatened to murder him. There's no exact statements on here. Adrian Boyce was an unarmed black father with 2 children next to him. Regardless of what Adrian did or did not say, my children were present. Adrian was at that moment unarmed, and Mr. Vasser did pull out his firearm and aim it at Adrian's knee in the same vicinity as my toddler's head. If something had glitched with that firearm and something had happened, we would not be in this situation. It would be a grave situation, unfortunately. Thank God it did not happen. It sounds as Mr. Vasser is very fully aware of his, knowledgeable of his firearm. But at the same time, I don't know that. I did not know that then, and I only just recently finding that out. My children they're traumatized. They thought their father was going to get shot. They've never seen that before. And he still could have called police without pulling out his firearm if he felt that threatened. 5 days later, he gets arrested. There was no threats of violence during that time, except for Mr. Vasser and him knowing inaccurate information about Adrian, which he is, in fact, a resident of Fern Ridge or Evergreen Vista, not Fern Ridge. I don't know why he would feel the need to pull out a gun with 2 children present. That to me, I felt that it was by any means necessary to intimidate Adrian, to get leverage of the situation between 2 grown men. I just want my children to be safe when they're outside playing, and I would like Mr. Vasser to no longer involve himself with our household. Of course, there's a criminal investigation going on, but I would like him to mind his business and no longer insert himself into our household.
Thank you, Miss King.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I'm not regardless here, it sounds like what everyone is agreeing is there was an incident at some point where, a gun was displayed and aimed and there was children present. So I hope your kids are doing okay. I think that's, regardless of my ruling today, that's certainly something that's difficult for a child to go through. As I said before, what I'm finding that if there is to be an order granted in this case, it would need to fall under the single act of violence prong of the unlawful harassment statute. And I sort of hinted at this earlier. The elements are largely the same as traditional unlawful harassment. The difference is that first element, whereas unlawful harassment will typically require a knowing and willful course of conduct. To qualify under a single act of violence, there needs to be a single act of violence or threat of violence, and then directed at a specific person that seriously alarms, annoys, harasses, or is detrimental to such person, that serves no lawful or legitimate purpose, which would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress, and that actually causes substantial emotional distress. And again, in this case, in the presence of a firearm or other weapon. To me, this all boils down to the element of whether the display of the firearm by Mr. Vasser, which seems to be undisputed here, served a lawful or legitimate purpose. And the context I'm looking at this in is it is the petitioner's, Ms. King's, burden to show more likely than not that Mr. Vasser's display of the firearm served no lawful or legitimate purpose. And that argument is being made in the context of Mr. Vasser being the alleged victim in a case where Mr. Boyce is being prosecuted for felony harassment from the same alleged incidents. Now, this is not that case. I'm not making any findings of fact about that case. We don't have Mr. Boyce even present. The question is, the only relevance of that in this case is whether there is proof by a preponderance of evidence that Mr. Vasser's display of the firearm did not serve any lawful or legitimate purpose. And given the context of the criminal case as well as what's in evidence right now, I can't make the finding more likely than not that Mr. Vasser's actions here were without legitimate or lawful purpose. That's not to say that they were or they weren't. I can't make a finding in order to issue an anti-harassment protection order based on what's before me. I think it's an open question, and on balance then, because it needs to be more likely than not, I can't make that finding. And so Ms. King, the orders being denied based on that determination. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No, Your Honor, I do want to make note that there is a further investigation with the Olympia Police Department with Lieutenant Whining, as well as the OID regarding this case, and all elements of all three cases involved. So I do want to make note that there is further investigation going on, and I have contacted and been in contact with the lieutenant, and he is doing his depth research and requesting all files, body cams, and of that nature as well.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Vasser, do you have any questions?
There is, I guess I don't have any questions now.
Okay. Yeah, to the extent I know there was a temporary order that was issued that expires today. So that simply is not converted into a full order. So that temporary order goes away. There's nothing further that needs to happen for that order to expire.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. Thank you all for your time this morning. And you're all free to log off.
Thank you for your time, Your Honor.